So finally, Age of History 3 is out. A game which I have anticipated and waited for not just after I heard about it being worked on, but also basically after a few years after Age of History 2 got released, and I have been anticipating this game for years to come, and it's now finally out, with the game still being actively updated and new huge features such as multiplayer starting to be added in slowly but surely as well. And oh my goodness, this game is absolutely insane. I can already say right off the bat, a man alone, the one and only Polish legend Lukasz Jakowski. This is a legendary man, at least in my opinion, who has managed to make a game like this alone in only a span of a few months to around a year. And it's absolutely insane how he has managed to do this. It's absolutely crazy, because when I heard that Age of History 3 was in the works, I honestly expected the game to take at the very least around 2 to 3 years to get fully finished. But no, the game got released in the span of like a few months to a year. And so after playing this game for quite a long amount of time, what are my thoughts on this game? Well, as an Age of History 1, 2, and now 3 connoisseur as well, and as a guy who has played the Age of History games and who is a huge fan of the Age of History franchise for many years, I can most certainly say that this is one of, if not the best, Age of History games and strategy games as a whole that I have ever played. Now yes, this game does not even come close to games like Hearts of Iron 4 or Europa Universalis 4 and 5, but it's still a game which comes close to those games, at least in my opinion. This game has managed to improve so much on top of Age of History 2 while still feeling like a continuation of said game. It is so good, and I absolutely love when game developers do this. When they make a sequel or a follow-up to another game that they made, and they improve on a lot of features, but they make sure the game still feels like it's a continuation slash successor of the previous game and not some totally new or totally different game. Now, there's so many other things besides that which I like about this game. For example, I really like the new map layout, the new province layout, how many provinces there is, all the new map details, and all of the new scripted in features, like for example the effects of different kinds of terrains and stuff like that is just so cool, and it's pretty realistic and very well thought out and implemented as well. Or another thing which I really like is that it's a real-time strategy game, which means that you don't have to click on the turn button or wait for every turn to go by, just like in Age of History 2. You can just click on the on pause button and chill there. The game just runs, and it's amazing. It's amazing what Lukasz Jakowski has managed to do. Another feature which I also liked was the military system as well. It is very similar to the Europa Universalis 4 system, and I feel like Age of History 3, at least in my opinion, is much closer now to games like EU4 and CK2, I think it's called now, I believe, than it is to Hearts of Iron 4, because of the fact that it has a lot of features now, which are a lot more similar to EU4 and CK2 instead of Hearts of Iron 4. Before, in Age of History 2, I could say the game was like a mix of Hearts of Iron 4 and the EU4 inspired features, but I feel like now Age of History 3 is more of a EU4 slash CK2 inspired game, or basically features, or basically or basically the features in the game are inspired by EU4 and CK2, and that isn't something bad. That is amazing. That's nothing bad. I'm not even saying that that's a bad thing. That's a really good thing, because I also play EU4 as well a lot, and I'm really used to those more simple mechanics, you know, like for example the recruiting mechanics, the stability mechanics, and the economy mechanics, and so on and so forth, you know. And that's the main reason why I also mostly play EU4 more than I play Hearts of Iron 4, because Hearts of Iron 4, it's an absolutely amazing game, don't get me wrong. I'm not hating at all on the game, it's absolutely amazing, but it's just, or at least some features are just too complex for me to understand and to grasp and to master. Well, in games like Age of History 3 and Europa Universalis 4, and let's not even talk about Age of History 2, then the mechanics are really easy for me to grasp, and I feel like one player or one person that I texted once, now I don't really have any proof, but I do precisely remember quite a few people did say this, and I will praise those people. They are correct, and I feel like that's the best way to describe Age of History 2, 3, and EU4 mechanics. It's that they're very easy to understand, or not very, but let's just say easy to understand, or somewhat easy to understand, but they're very hard to master. So yeah, they're easy to understand but hard to master, and I feel like that's an amazing way to sum up Age of History 2, 3, and EU4 mechanics as a whole. And that's why I like and absolutely love the mechanics in EU4 and then Age of History 2 and 3, because they're easy to understand yet simple to grasp and master long term. And I just really like games like that in general, and that's one of the main things that I also really like about Age of History 3 as well. Now besides that, there's like tons of other features which I absolutely love, and they should show up on the screen right now. I'm not gonna be explaining them in detail or telling you guys literally all the features I love, because this video would be like 500 hours long. But basically, it's an amazing game with a lot of cool features, and overall it's just really, really good. Now, that doesn't mean that the game is perfect. While it does sound like I'm glazing the game way too much, and while it does sound like I haven't found any negatives or anything similar, that's not exactly what I'm trying to do, and that's not even close to my main opinion and objections and stuff like that on this game. While this game is good, and while there is a lot of amazing features, just like I have said many times up until now in this video, there is also a lot of features which are quite bad or quite weirdly implemented. A great or big example of this is the peace system. Now, the peace negotiation system isn't bad on its own, but let's say for example you're playing as Bavaria and you attack Saxony, and Saxony has, let's say, Baden-Württemberg as an ally, and you defeat both of them, and then you try to peace out and gain land from both of them. You can't really do that. You can't do that, and you can only take land from one of the nations you've taken over, not both of them, or at least I think from the nation you've declared war on. And I feel like that's a really badly implemented feature, and I really hope that Lucas fixes it as soon as possible, because it's really bad and also really unrealistic how you can't also demand land from the other nation when it deliberately joined on the other nation's side and declared war on you, you know? So it should be logical and also way more realistic if you could also demand land from the allied nation as well, especially if you've already occupied or taken over most of all of that country. While we're at that system, while we're at the peace negotiation system, the peace demanding system, I feel like also, in my opinion, is pretty broken as well. What do I mean by this? Well, for example, let's say you're defeating a country a lot, right? And then the country starts to push you back, and then you're like, you know what, maybe this was quite a bad idea, you know, I hope we accept peace. And then the demands to actually set any demands, or you have to have 90% success in that war that you're inside of to make demands. And I feel like that's quite unrealistic. I feel like there should be a system where you can still make demands even though you're not winning, or like maybe you can make demands even though you're starting to lose the war. And then after that, it like a little pop-up shows up saying if the nation accepted or refused, so that there's a little more strategy and thinking, and so at the same time the game is a bit more fun and fair as well. Another thing which I don't like is how you can't white piece a nation right when it actually like starts to push into your land. So for example, this happened to me many times. For example, once I played as Poland and I got invaded by Germany, I think, or Lithuania. I don't remember who it was. And I was at war with, I believe, Czechoslovakia, if I'm not wrong. And I tried to white peace with Lithuania because, I mean, obviously, I know I wasn't prepared to go to war with Lithuania. And they had hardly taken like 1 or 2 provinces from my nation, and it just wouldn't allow you to white peace. And while some people might say that's quite unrealistic, or it could make the game, you know, very easy, I don't really feel like that's the case, and it wouldn't really change much, and it would honestly improve quite a few things. So I definitely hope that that also gets changed as well. And there's quite a few more features which I really feel like could use some changes. So for example, the military system, while it is great, it still needs to be worked on quite a bit. Why do I say this? Well, the system in and of its own is great, but think about it this way. You have around 200,000 or like 200 units, and you're fighting against an army of 250 units, but you're in like the Alps, and like the most deadly and highest and densest places of the Alps, while the other military is all the way down in the lower or more flatter parts of the Alps. Who do you think would win? Of course, the other army, which is stuck all the way up in the Alps, in the harshest parts of the Alps, would lose because of their horrible conditions. But in this game, while the system has been greatly improved, it's still just a number-based / number-reliant system, or at least it's at least greatly reliant on only numbers. And I really feel like that shouldn't be the case. And while I don't think they should like directly copy the Hearts of Iron 4 or like EU4 system or something like that, I feel like they should still implement at least some smaller changes and tweaks to the military to make it at least a bit more realistic and fair. And there's also quite a few more stuff which is not really fully finished, or which is not fairly tweaked, or which is badly implemented or something similar, and at least some of them should show up on the screen. But overall, the positives absolutely outweigh the negatives by an absolutely gigantic amount, at least in my opinion. And so now that I've talked about this game as a whole, the positives, negatives, my overall opinions and stuff like that, what do I think about this game, and what is my final verdict on this game, at least for now? My final verdict on this game is that it's an absolutely amazing, absolutely awesome game. A great and deserving sequel of its name, which, while does have quite some features and still feels in some places quite unfinished, for the amount of people working on it and for the amount of time it took for the first release to get fully released to the public, bravo, Łukasz Drakowski, bravo. I would rate this game an absolute 9.5 out of 10. A awesome sequel to an already, no, I won't say great, but let's say on the border of between good and a great game, aka Age of History 2.